Fast Forward Productions. The women are speaking.
It's 2020. We're doubling down. We have nothing else to do. So it was just, we were trying to put out as much as possible that was as helpful as possible during a time where, not everyone was in a financially comfortable situation and could work with us as coaches. So it was like, well, let's coach through the podcast, or let's do more content on social media. When I have to put my finger on a moment where tactics started to become something more than Alex and Meredith, it was during 2020. It was COVID. It started to really stand up on its own. Hey everyone, Meredith here. You're listening to the Afternoon Snack Podcast. In case you didn't have it marked in your calendar, this week marks Tactic Nutrition's 5th birthday. We've been in business for 5 years, which is actually kind of crazy because it honestly feels like just yesterday when we decided to do this. So in today's episode, we're going to talk back through some of the history of Tactic, where it started, how we got to where we are now, and some of the things that we used to say yes to that we definitely don't anymore. It's kind of a cool walk down memory lane, and we hope that you enjoy listening to it.
So we just got back from the pet store and it has been a rough week for Ivy. She eats this food that you can only buy in Calgary. You can't buy it in Fernie. And it's one specific type of food and it has to come in the small can. So there's the same food packaged in a small can and then packaged in a big can to make it more economical, but she won't eat it when it's from the big can, even though it's the exact same food. She only eats Wellness minced tuna. She eats the tuna in the small can. She also eats Wellness minced salmon from the small can. Like Wellness has a lot of different foods, like cat foods. They have pate, they have gravies, like they have the same food cut up in different ways.
Yeah, different textures.
And she only eats minced, and she only eats the minced tuna and salmon from the small cans. So the other day I go to the store because she's out of food. My parents were taking care of her, and apparently they were freaking out because she ran out of food and she was meowing, and they tried giving her some of Ivan's food, and then they tried giving her actual tuna, which she wouldn't eat. She only eats this one specific kind of food. So I rushed to the pet store on the way back from Bend, Oregon. When we arrived in Calgary, we stopped at the pet store and I bought all of their small can tuna and small can salmon. They only had about 9 cans of salmon. They had about 15 cans of tuna. So I cleared them out and then ordered 48 cans of each. So we get here and I notice the lid is different. It's like just different. Like you wouldn't notice it by just glancing at it, but once you open it, you're like, something's not right. And then I see that the texture has changed. It's minced more than usual. So I give it to Ivy and sure enough, she doesn't eat it. So I'm like, well, shoot, because we're not going back to Calgary for like 2 weeks. Thankfully, the salmon was the old formula. So we've been feeding her that, but now we're only down to 2 cans. I was also trying to mix in the tuna and she was eating around it. So we just went to the pet store and we bought every single kind of cat food they had. And I'm not talking like kibble.
Yeah, no.
She gets her own kibble, but she also gets her morning breakfast and dinner of wet food. And we just tried out 2 different wet foods. We have about 7 or 8, and she didn't like the first 2.
No.
So things could get rough, even more rough for Ivy. She might have to say goodbye to wet food forever.
I mean, if she's going to be that picky, then that's
or she's gonna
100% on her.
She's going to have to write into Wellness and ask them to change the formula back.
Or like send the formula to her mom so her moms can make it.
Yeah. Her old cat mom?
Yes.
Or we could learn how to make it.
That's what I meant.
We bought actual sardines. We were like, maybe she'll eat real fish.
I love how you probably thought that those were little and actually they're like 4.5 inches long.
I did.
They're
I was
like
thinking,
whole fish.
Yeah. So what are we going to do with that? Just let her chomp on a whole one?
We'll see what she does with it. I'm sure Rue will enjoy a sardine.
No cat food goes to waste with Rue around.
Rue has a cat food limit where it starts causing issues.
I don't think the cat food gives Rue diarrhea.
I'm telling you.
Rue can eat like 5 stroopwafels and get no diarrhea, but she eats a little bit of cat food and she gets diarrhea. Really?
I don't know. That's just the only correlation that I've seen.
Because she once ate a little bit of cat food and then got the zoomies and then pooped. First time she had diarrhea, she had it everywhere.
Actually, she did have diarrhea recently inside and she shit on our printer.
I think she was trying to hide and trying to get behind like the bed or something.
But I'm like, how did you even get your butt over the printer? We have like a little label printer that we use for Shopify and then also like a full size regular printer. but it sits on the floor and she shat on both of them.
That was the worst. We were like, what stinks? Is that Ivy's poop? We were like, no, that's worse than Ivy's poop. You didn't see anything.
No.
And I was like, no, you got to look for it because she'll hide. She always goes in the corner if she has to go inside, which is rare because we're relatively good dog owners and take her outside. But yeah, she went like in the corner, which is unfortunately where the printers were.
Yeah. And so it was like kind of also on the wall a little bit.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Anyways, yeah, the cat food debacle is a little annoying, but she'll get through it. Talk about a first world problem. Meanwhile, the cats at your aunt's barn eat like
Each other, pretty much.
They eat dog food and like leftover pizza.
Yeah, they do. They eat stale bread.
Yeah.
And they love it.
I know.
There is no sniffing that. They're after it right
Meanwhile,
away.
Ivy's like, no, this is too mint. This is chopped a little too finely for me.
Maybe she once heard me complaining about the way you made ground beef. And I was
Maybe.
like, it's too minced. You have to keep larger chunks. I did give you that feedback once.
Now I'm like, but whenever I do ground beef for spaghetti, it's basically like little mini burgers.
I love it. You get some texture in there instead of like mincedy, meaty. Like you bought chili from Tim Hortons or something. It's like very processed.
Yeah, very homogeneously mixed in.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right. Well, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to all of us.
Yeah, all of us. The truple.
Is it truple or thruple?
Thruple.
Thruple.
So we had our own anniversary of 1 year married a couple weeks ago. And then we had Tactic's anniversary on Sunday, September 17th. She's also part of our couple.
Is Tactic a she? I always wondered if Tactic was a she or...
Tactic is a she or a they.
Okay, yeah.
So Tactic's 5.
Yeah, which is nuts to think about. I remember when we first started, we took ourselves to Las Vegas to celebrate. And
I thought we were celebrating my birthday.
No. That was Tactic.
Oh, okay.
I think. I don't know. Maybe it was like both. I do remember
It was like me becoming a lawyer, starting Tactic, quitting being a lawyer, and my birthday.
Oh, yeah. So like a celebration of many things.
Yeah.
We took like the most budget trip to Vegas ever. What I remember about that trip was it was like very much a working trip because we had just launched like that week.
I remember that we were basically asking people who were our current clients if they were going to come over to Tactic with us.
On that trip, we sent that email. Yeah.
Of course we did.
Yeah. We were in Vegas and we were
This is a good time.
Yeah. And so then like our existing clients were like trickling in with like, yeah, of course I'll stay. And that was the resounding feedback, which was really quite nice. And then the rest of the weekend, I mean, we don't party. So it was kind of like we'd spend the day at the pool.
We'd split one margarita a day.
Yeah.
Partially because of cost, partially because of health.
Yeah. And then, we had intake forms coming in. We had people signing up. And so that was when it was just us. And it would be like, well, do you want this person or do I want this person? So that was our first working vacation. And they've all been working vacations ever since. What's crazy is I do remember distinctly at that time being like, well, what do we have to lose? I think we had both kind of convinced ourselves that it was not going to last. That was okay because like the overhead costs were so low.
It cost us $1,000 to incorporate. And that was the cost.
Yeah.
And then our website. But we got a deal on the website because we knew the guy who had
the web development company. Yeah. So, I mean, that story
it was like $2,000
yeah,
to get going.
The story about Jim Carrey when he like wrote himself a check for $1 million that he promised he would cash later. And that's how he knew that he would be successful. I would not say that was our story.
I worried about the business failing every day for many moons.
Yeah.
And still do to some degree.
Yeah. But the first year was really just kind of plugging away. That was 2018 going into 2019. And we were still competing in CrossFit at that time. So we went down to Wadapalooza that year. What else did we do that year? Granite Games.
I remember being really busy at Granite Games because we were one of the top teams based on the individuals who had put together our team. And they were like, well, Morning Chalk Up did an article saying that Alex and Meredith and our two teammates, Zach and Ethan could make it to the games. And a lot of people, I guess, started following us. And then we started getting like inquiries and stuff and people signing up. You never know. That's part of it. You never know what the catalyst is for people to sign up. Yeah, I remember being busy on that trip too. And that was like the first time where I'm like, okay, owning your own business and like being a full-time athlete is kind of hard.
Yeah, it was like the first glimpse into like, hey, this is impossible. You're going to have to quit. Yeah, I mean, it helped that I think we were both kind of at the twilight of our careers anyways, but it was like a long weekend. And then that played out again the next next year when we did Wadapalooza on Team of 4. We'll get to that though. The first year was very much like, it was full-time, but also part-time. It didn't really demand that much attention. We weren't doing a whole lot on social media, certainly not what we do now. And so it was all just like kind of client management. We weren't really doing much for lead generation. Those were, the good old sort of calm days when it wasn't really very stressful at all.
We used to have our rest days on Thursday, which happened to be a day that wasn't a client-facing day for business. And we didn't really have anything to do.
No.
It was like, well, what do we do? And then I think it was probably like a year and a half in, Thursdays started getting kind of busy. Or we ended up starting to work out on Thursdays. We had to like shift our schedule.
Yeah, I think that the shift happened in the first year. Both of us had been taking 2 rest days, like off the gym, off training per week. And those had historically been on Thursday and Sunday. And so then in that first year, towards the end of it, I think we both shifted to Monday and Friday off, because those were really client heavy days. And then the rest of the days were training days. We didn't have that like dead day in the week anymore. Yeah. I think we had like kind of slowly just been growing our individual client bases, you and me. Heading into 2020, like I said, we were still kind of competing in CrossFit. I had like basically decided to be done, but then we got sort of roped onto this team for Wadapalooza, another 4-person team like Granite Games, to try to, I guess, qualify for the games. And we, again, came very close. That was another weekend where it got really busy for us. And I think part of it is just you're there's a lot of attention on you. People are just talking, or maybe it was something that we had done like 2 or 3 weeks prior. We just didn't realize. But I think at that time we had started to sort of ramp up social media a little bit, just with posts. We weren't doing any video at that time, just posting. So we did that. Wadapalooza was fun, went well. We didn't qualify, which was actually totally fine. But I think both of us. And then
we were on demo team.
Oh yeah, I forgot about demo team.
And
demo team was before Wadapalooza.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
No, it
because
wasn't.
demo team was 2019. Wadapalooza Team of 4 was 2020 because it was right before COVID.
Okay, I don't count in years.
Okay.
So you're right. When you say 2020, it's all a blur.
Well, I know that's when time becomes a bit more of a fluid.
Yeah, I'm
concept.
like, I have no idea when anything happened.
Yeah.
I can think about it somewhat chronologically.
Yeah. So let's back
I
up.
just remember tactics slowly taking over my life.
Yes, slowly absorbing every facet of your identity. So I guess demo team for the CrossFit Games was 2019. And that also, I think, got us a little bit of attention.
I remember when we went on Watt on the Waves cruise. That was also really stressful. Like we were traveling so much before COVID and trying to manage the business. And I remember the service was awful, struggling to check in with clients. That was so stressful. And then we ended up going to this talk on nutrition. I can't remember it was some macros guy. And I remember thinking like we were small potatoes still at that point. Like we didn't have a large following as a business, but I remember thinking like we can do better than this guy. Like we're better than this and we're going to be better than this. I remember thinking that. Yeah. And I just remember putting our heads down. And back then, like we would run everything by each other. I remember once someone signed up, they were going to pay at a discounted rate because their partner was doing something for your sister's wedding. And I was like mad because I didn't know about it. We just did everything together. Like everything was together. It was like, is this a good response? Like to inquiries, like we would draft emails together. For me, especially, I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. The nutrition coaching wasn't that new for me, but running a business, like everything had a microscope on it. I didn't want to make a mistake. And I wanted just some validation that I was doing the right thing before it like went out to a client or a potential client. Yeah.
The first year or 2 years was a period of no delegation whatsoever.
And like doing everything together.
Yeah.
Everyone did everything.
It was like, what's the most inefficient way we could possibly run this business? And then that's what we did.
Yeah.
Including using Zen Planner.
Yeah.
So, no offense to anyone who works for Zen Planner who is listening to this. It's just very overbuilt for what we need. And at that time had like loads of bugs in it.
And then after that, we were going to go team. It was like our last hurrah, I'm pretty sure. So many of these memories is just a memory of me trying to do work on these trips. Like when we were staying in Paul's house, he had 2 young boys and a baby girl at the time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't work because those boys were nuts. They were asking questions. Many of them were the question, why?
Yeah, like, what are you doing? I'm working. Why? Because I need to make money. Why? Well, so I can come visit you. Why?
Yeah. And so anyway, we didn't end up doing that because COVID hit. We didn't end up competing. We were there training for a week and then we went home because COVID hit. And once COVID hit, that was when things started.
Honestly, I hate to say this because it was a horrible time for so many people, but COVID was a real blessing in disguise for us and for our business. Number one, it just put an end to our competitive careers as athletes, like a hard stop. No more distraction with competing or with travel.
Even on a daily basis, no driving to the gym. I realized at the time, once we had our home gym, how much time that was taking up and taking away from like a work day.
So that happened. No travel, stuck at home. We had like luckily just somehow gotten home gym equipment right before COVID, because then it basically became impossible to get any gym equipment. But we had bought stuff to build out a little basement gym in our rental condo. So we had that ready to go. And with everyone else kind of shifting back into their homes, it had the unexpected effect of, increasing our business. Like I think we were both prepared for the ship to sink. Like everyone
I remember
was.
a few of my clients immediately were like, I don't know what this means for me. I'm going to have to cancel.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to do?
Go. Yeah.
And then we just were like, okay, we got to do what we can. I think you started posting daily at home workouts.
Yeah.
Like we just started doing everything we could. It was to help, just like get people following. And it wasn't even about like, it was just keeping the moment. It's like some momentum.
Yeah.
And not going down. And a lot of our clients, and I think like this probably speaks to the messaging that we were putting out even back then, we're like, just because my environment has changed doesn't mean that like my habits need to change. Like
right.
I can still set routines and like stick to my plan, and challenges presented themselves for certain people, and some people really loved it because they were easy to control their environment. They weren't going out for drinks and stuff. So it was like you had to shift with everyone based on what they wanted, but a lot of people kind of doubled down on their goals and that sort of thing. Yeah, we were fine. We kind of like picked up after a couple weeks.
I think it was a pleasant surprise in the midst of all of that. We got so busy that we ended up hiring Lindsay at that time, which was kind of a natural progression because she was sort of phasing out of what she was doing at that time. And I think she was sort of trying to decide, like, kind of go this alone, or, we had, I think, offered her a position. And so she decided to work with us, which we are really grateful for. She's been a great addition. But that was a necessity as much as it was like a happy coincidence with her timing. Like we were going to have to bring somebody on.
And now we have, I don't even know how many people work for us, 10, 12?
Yeah. I mean, I thought like, okay, we're going to hire Lindsay and we're going to be a 3-person show. And we were like that year she was the only person that we brought on. But that was the year that we started building a team with Lindsay. We started the podcast in 2020. And I remember that was one of those things that you were not super hot on, but it fit very much the theme of like, well, let's just try it. Like it's 2020, we're doubling down. We have nothing else to do. So it was just, we were trying to put out as much as possible that was as helpful as possible during a time where, not everyone was in a financially comfortable situation and could work with us as coaches. So it was like, well, let's coach through the podcast, or let's do more content on social media. Let's make sure that people have home workouts to do. We became a brand in 2020 that people were looking to as not only a source of information, but potentially a source of comfort, a source of, obviously like some workouts, a source of guidance. I mean, that's when I have to put my finger on a moment where tactics started to become something more than Alex and Meredith. It was during 2020. It was COVID. It started to really stand up on its own. It's funny to think back because it's also intertwined with sort of where we've gone, but that practice, especially with the podcast and with posting, sort of laid a foundation that we built on moving forward. Like we haven't really changed the blueprint of how we do things from a content or a media standpoint. We've just used the foundation and the groundwork that we set in 2019, 2020 and just scaled it up to more complex, better, heavier hitting content. Still delivered daily, still recording a podcast weekly. It's a prime example of like plant a seed, water it, like be okay with the fact that I'm pretty sure our first podcast had like 20 listeners, but that was okay. And that's how you start, right?
Yeah. And really just like putting yourself out there. That was hard for me. The podcast especially, really just kind of like letting everything fly and hoping you land somewhere. Funny to think back on that.
And then the home gym, like we've had this conversation. I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast, but like I like more than anything attribute a lot of our success. And this sounds so weird to say, but a lot of our success with the business to the fact that we got a home gym. And it makes me sound so bro-y or like, entitled. I don't know. Fitness is a very important part of our lives. It's something that we dedicate, 90 minutes, probably minimum per day to. And we, at that time, we're still driving to, one of the like couple of gyms that we would use in Calgary. And so that was like 90 minutes of driving per day or like potentially more. And so you get that time back. There's value in social connection at the gym. I get that. But it also extends the session, at least, for us. You have to wait on equipment. You're talking to people. Like a 90-minute session can easily become 2 hours or 2.5 hours if you go at the wrong time. We were getting hours back every single day and even more on the weekends. And that went for us kind of directly back into the business. And it really like amplified what we could do in a way that I don't think that we expected. I mean, we bought a house. The first thing that we did was put a gym in the house. It is a top priority. It's kind of crazy, but when people want to get started with an exercise habit, especially if it's someone who has the means, but they can't get to the gym or their schedule is irregular, this or this, I'm usually like, look, like, I don't know if you have the means, but if you do, getting even a small home gym set up is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. Even if all you do is buy 2 or 3 sets of dumbbells, a bench, and a rower. You get some equipment so that you can work out at home in some capacity and then just like grow it over time.
Yeah. I mean, if you're spending, I'm going to talk about CrossFit, but I know it's cheaper to buy other gym memberships, but let's say you're spending $200 a month on a gym membership and you buy $200 of equipment, like on Facebook Marketplace, you can get a lot. We got a whole set of dumbbells for like $300.
Yeah.
Like, this is incredible. Anyways, you just get something like that and you find a workout program that works for you, or you hire someone who can help you. And every month you just buy like one new piece of equipment, or you put money that you maybe would spend going out for dinner aside, things like that. You slowly build it and like, yeah. And then you find community elsewhere, which we kind of did.
Which is actually kind of awesome. Like coming from a background where CrossFit was our community. It's kind of nice to, I still do this style training for my fitness, but I have my community that is not involved in CrossFit at all. And that provides like an enormous amount of perspective and connection outside of that area, which is like honestly like very refreshing.
Yeah. I would say that the home gym was the catalyst. Yeah. Especially for me, because I was still trying to compete. Mm-hmm. Like I was still very fit and you had kind of like taken a step back. And then I think once I didn't qualify for semifinals that year, I was like, okay, I'm going to be done. That was brutal because I was trying to work and compete on that weekend because it's a home like workout.
So this was in 2021.
Okay, 2021. And I remember being so flustered because I was not focused on it that we didn't even do the setup right. You had to measure out lines and be on certain parts of the gym to do the workout. Like you had to move equipment and make sure it was all set up. So it's fair for everyone. Like that's a certain amount of distance between the GHD machine and the rower. And I was just not paying attention and I just did it wrong. It just wasn't a priority anymore. And I recognized that. I was like, thankfully, I'm not making these mistakes at work. Mm-hmm. I'm making them in this other thing that I'm doing that doesn't make me any money or really at that point bring much fulfillment. And at that point, I was like, okay, it's clear now. I can't do both to the extent that I want to do them. So I made the decision to be done with CrossFit. Yeah. But so I was just getting so beat up. And I think because I loved what we were doing so much with Tactic, it wasn't like I was giving up CrossFit. It was just like, it's time.
Yes.
And that felt good.
Yeah.
It was something was waiting for me that I could really put my heart and soul into in a big way. And I think now it's cool because I'm doing something like specifically running where I can tie it together with the business a bit better. Running is bigger than CrossFit. Even though everyone can do CrossFit, running is different. So it's kind of cool to kind of have come full circle and found something that meshes a little bit better.
Yeah. 2021 was moving into that year. We hired a few more coaches in 2021. That was the year of running for us. That was when we both got back into running. I was doing like half marathon training. You were after quarterfinals. I think you picked Chicago to run. Our focus athletically kind of pivoted. And again, like running is super easy because you can do it anywhere. So not that we were really traveling in 2021, but on the 2 occasions that we did, you run out your door and do your workout because your workout is a run.
Well, even just going to visit your family. I remember we got into one argument once because I wanted to go to the gym twice. And you were like, Alex, we're here to like visit my family. Can we not? And I was like, well, I have to get my workouts in. And now it's just like, it's just not a thing. Like it releases a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And we have done a whole podcast about retiring from CrossFit and the relief that it brings to step out of the competitive arena.
But like when we're with your family, I can be like, okay, I'm leaving for an hour.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, don't get lost.
Well, also, it's so much easier to explain, like, Alex is going to go for a run. Everyone's like, oh, cool. Yeah, have a good run. Versus like, Alex is going to go to the gym. And they're like, why?
Yeah.
It's such a peculiar activity and it shouldn't be, but it is.
Well, and like you can run whenever you want. There's no open gym hours. There's no classes you have to work around. You don't have to
email and be like, hey, can I do my programming in the corner of your gym while your class? I just don't do classes. you know?
Yeah.
God, I hate myself.
I know.
Yeah. So that was kind of the year of running and hiring some more folks and just kind of getting into a really good groove with what we were doing. We started to dabble in some video at the end of 2021. I remember doing a video for the Chicago Marathon, and that was like one of the first ones that we did. And then 2022 rolls around, and that's, I would say 2022 on, like our whole world kind of flipped upside down.
I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, I kind of know, I think I know what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Like I feel confident that we're doing something that is something.
Well, we finally got to exploit on this foundation that we had been growing and all of these different things that we were kind of experimenting in. You know, we had done talks at college campuses. We had said yes to basically every phone call.
Oh my gosh, we said yes to everything.
Yeah. So it was like we did all of these things and
none of them really materialized.
No.
Except we once did a presentation back in San Diego for the RX Smart Gear day.
This was in 2018.
The first year, nobody knew who we were, except for his athletes. And I think at that point, I didn't want to be Alex Parker and Meredith Root CrossFit Games athletes. Like I wanted to be Tactic Nutrition. And they were introducing us as athletes.
Yeah.
And maybe like 7 people were there. And one of them recently signed up.
I know.
She's like, I've been following you ever since. I didn't have enough money back then, but now I can pay for a membership.
Yeah.
And I was like, what
Holy
do you
crap. It paid off.
I don't know if it necessarily did, but
It's
it's still nice to know that you grabbed somebody and maybe helped them along the way and they're still fans.
I do think a lot of the early saying yes to things, you do that so that you can figure out what you don't want to be doing.
Like this wasn't worth it.
No. And you can be honest with it. So maybe 2022 was finally the year where we stopped saying yes to things and just, started saying yes to what we wanted to put our energy into and what we had kind of slowly been growing. And that is when things really took off, I think, for us as a brand.
We still say yes to a lot of things. Like you just did a webinar to 10 people?
Yeah.
Because somebody who did a plan only was like, I love your message. Can you speak to my group? And we were like, okay.
I never really regret if I don't have to leave my living room. I can do it. I have the talk pretty much done. I never regret getting to connect with people like that. It's like the bigger asks. It's people who want to involve themselves in our business. We did a couple of those and it was just people who wanted to use our brand. Yeah. And so it's just, you're like,
you don't know what you're doing. So you're like, okay, we'll see how it goes. Please send a contract.
Yeah.
And then the contract looks bad and you're kind of like,
never mind.
Yeah. Or we should have a call. And then it just never really takes off. Yeah. And then it fizzles out and you're like, okay, well now we know not to say yes to this.
That was probably for the best. I'd say in 2022 was the year that we really got out of CrossFit. Our audience really pivoted kind of to more mainstream general population and our messaging did as well. And it had kind of been sort of pivoting in that direction. Pivot is actually the official word of COVID. So that was just a joke.
Oh,
everyone,
good one.
Everyone was like, you gotta pivot, you gotta pivot, you gotta pivot.
Oh, okay.
In COVID when whatever.
Oh, yeah. But we didn't have to.
No, because we were already in the online space. So we just kept doing what we were doing.
Yeah.
2022 was the big year. And I guess that brings us kind of to now, 2023.
Yeah.
We've hired some more coaches. Team is getting bigger. We're doing some new things.
Talk about the juicy parts.
All right.
Let's talk about personal growth. Because everybody's followed along. They kind of know the trajectory of Tactic, the interesting parts. And we've kind of touched on all of this throughout. But I, as a person, as a professional, have learned so much. I would say at least once a week, even still this week, something comes up where I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to respond to this. I don't know what to say to this person. I don't know how to handle this coach. I don't know how to do this membership. There's always something where you have to figure it out. You have to problem solve on small scale and large scale. It starts with an idea sometimes, we're, a new project and it's holy moly, you just start things that you didn't think about initially come into the fold. And it's just constant problem solving and just you say yes to something and then you just kind of figure it out. One of my clients, he's a lawyer and he told me that. He's like, you tell the client you can do it and you sit down and you figure it out to an extent.
Right.
But I would say my personal growth, as much as Tactic has grown, I have grown so much. I've learned so much about accounting, taxes, law, which I went to law school, but when you learn it hands on, what are the things that you need to be paying attention to? What do you need to hire a lawyer for? Little things, being organized. I've always been organized, but it's next level when you own a business.
Yeah.
And then just managing people, managing coaches. I feel like I could do any job now.
Yeah. This has been one of the best teachers that there is getting a business to basically be 5 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And grow.
And I think the hard part is like, there were a lot of days of us sitting in our living room, because that's where we worked most of the time and still do, when we both didn't know.
Yeah.
And I think we rely on each other a lot, but there would be moments where I'm like, well, what do you think we should do? And you're like, I don't know. What do you think we should do? And I was like, oh, she doesn't know either. And you just kind of figure it out. You have resources, you have mentors, and you just scramble and do it. And we've nailed it every time.
I don't know about that. You learn about yourself too. I think that probably comes with anyone who works with a lot of people. But when I look back, and I don't know how long we'll have this company, hopefully forever. Hopefully it just keeps growing.
Hopefully we'll have it, but we won't have to work for it.
It'll just do its thing. It'll just be. Yeah. I mean, when I look back to, I guess I'll say the early years of Tactic, years 1 through 5, I think what I will remember the most is how much I learned about myself through other people. Just communication, learning about other people, like them allowing me into their lives and into their struggles and their difficulties. I have looked up more articles online and, sought out books based on difficulties that people have, I don't quite understand. I basically stopped reading nutrition science altogether because it's just not helpful. I mean, it is to a very small degree and with certain people for sure, but mostly it's people just need to be validated and heard. And through those conversations, I think learned to, and I'm not going to say I'm like the best. I think people, and, myself included, I think you tend to treat yourself like you're your own harshest critic. And so I can still be quite hard on myself in certain situations, but I've learned to be a more like gentle human being with myself.
Yeah.
And with other people. And even, going through the world and just being nicer. Like you don't know what people are going through. They're probably going through something, most likely.
Yeah. I would actually say that the biggest change that I made in the past 5 years because of this job has been to become a more understanding and compassionate person. I was a hard person 5 years ago. Like I had standards for people. Like I just wasn't an understanding person. I just expected everyone to be like me. I mean, we talked about it in our relationship. Like I expected you to be like me. Like, why aren't you doing this the right way? Do what I say. And it just through time, like you realize like, that's just not the way it is. That's as simple as it can be. It's just not the way it is. I got my head out of my ass and was like, okay, this is the world. If I'm going to be working with people, I have to adjust.
Especially in like the fitness and nutrition realm. But I mean, I'm sure this extends into professional realm as well. It's really easy to start to believe that you have what you have because you've worked harder and you're morally superior. And people who don't have what you have, whatever that level of success is, they don't have it simply because they have not worked as hard as you have. And so that's a really slippery slope because then you label anyone who is not at your level, basically just they're lazy, they don't want it. And that's not the case at all.
I mean, most people are doing their best.
Yeah. And so I think that number one, it's really important that you not believe that about yourself. If you have achieved a high level of success, there's a lot of luck that goes into that. It's not all luck, but you have to have some luck. And then fundamentally, when you're working with people who are struggling, they're not struggling because of who they are. They're struggling for a lot of different reasons. And some of them are very valid.
Most of them are valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's been the biggest like change when I look back and reflect on myself through the past 5 years. But yeah, there were a lot of struggles. What would you say was the hardest part or still is the hardest part of owning a business? Like what aspect of the business? We have very different roles.
We do.
Sometimes they overlap, but sometimes they don't. And there's definitely like a person who's in charge of the role and the other person kind of swoops in for support.
Yeah. That whole like not delegating thing ended in around 2021.
Yeah. We were like, absolutely not. This is impossible.
Yeah. So my role in the company now is obviously I still carry a client load and I coach some people. But I'm mostly involved in, I would say, like business development, media, marketing, sort of like, I guess, more of an oversight role, and then anything creative. That's kind of my jam. And then I would say you're kind of the operational person. You're the one who keeps it all moving smoothly. You do the hard work.
Oh,
I
mean, you do the hard work.
No, I just, and maybe that it's all relative. Like
we do what we're good at.
Yeah.
And that's what's like, we were talking the other day, I'm like, Meredith, we got so lucky that it was the two of us, even before Tactic had really prominent strengths.
Yes.
And we just kind of like use those strengths for the business and they happen to be like perfectly well suited for two different aspects.
The best thing you can do for a business is if you have a partnership or multiple people working on a team, do what you're really good at. Use your superpowers. Make that your job. Even if you have to hire someone in to do the other stuff, do that. Because what's going to ultimately grow the business is putting the right people in the right positions to do the right jobs, do them well, and do them with a lot of passion. And we've done that with the two of us.
Without even really needing to try. It just kind of happened.
That's what I said. Like, there's got to be some luck. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't say that we're successful because we're harder working. I'm well aware of the amount of luck that it took to get us here, in addition to the hard work. It was both.
We're such a well-oiled machine now, not to brag, but it's not even a question of like, okay, are you going to do this or am I? We just know who's doing what. Yeah. It doesn't even require a conversation.
No. And that's been nice.
Yeah.
Because you used to have to talk through everything. We were even like going through a phase. I was like, we got to have meetings every week, you and me, to discuss what we have on our agendas. And basically we just bickered about when to have that damn meeting, and now we don't even need it.
Yeah.
So just bicker for a year, and eventually
you're like, we need a calendar to put on the wall.
I actually bought one. It just never went on the wall.
You downloaded some app too for task management, and I was like, you can't even use the notes section in your phone.
Well, everyone manages
let alone
things.
Like you're gonna manage everyone else's to-do list.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna manage. I was gonna teach you how to use it, and then you were gonna
so
manage.
that I could do your to-do list.
Yeah, that's my ultimate goal.
Your to-do list is me just repeating, hey, did you do this? Hey, did you do this?
And I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about that. Yes.
Yes, opens her computer, starts typing.
Yeah.
Hardest part of owning a business?
Oh, probably the flexibility, which creates a level of like inflexibility, especially I would say like a remote business that you can pick up and take with you anywhere, which is exactly what we do. It is very hard to walk away from. It's 7 days a week of at a minimum administrative. And now that the social media channel, like Instagram, is so large, managing that is by itself is almost a full-time job. Just the comments, the inquiries, the DMs, like staying on top of it, keeping people engaged. So it creates a situation where it's like very hard to actually take time away. We did that last year when we went to Tanzania. We took, was it 2 weeks?
Yeah, but we started working
at the end.
Yeah. We couldn't stand it anymore.
I don't necessarily need like a 2-week vacation, but it would be nice to have like 5 days off here and there, like maybe once a year.
We did take a 4-day break when we went to the gorge.
Yeah, that's true.
There's always a little bit of work.
Yes.
But like, it's like an hour for like, I think I did an hour over the course of 4 days.
Yeah. So I would just say sort of the relentlessness of it. That's the hardest part. It's not even a part that I necessarily dislike. Like, I've had a job where I got to leave the job at the job. Like, I got to leave work at work, and this is not that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say generally like lack of flexibilities, sometimes like a lack of boundaries makes it hard, challenging, but not in like a, we need to do something to fix this kind of way. It's just challenging.
There's been a lot of conversations where it's like, is this sustainable? I don't think the answer is yes, but it's short term. Like, I know it's been, a few years, but it's like short term can mean 10 years and then you're set up.
Yeah.
But I think I read somewhere the other day where it's like total cliche. If you truly love something, you never work a day in your life. And like tactic for me is that it's a hobby. Like, it's very rare that I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes check-ins with clients can become a lot. We'll talk about this next, but like taking a day off from a check-in, because we're talking to clients sometimes 3 days a week, at least 2 to most. Sometimes taking like a holiday Monday off and not making up that check-in, which we recently started doing, has been so helpful so that we can show up as the best coaches and as our clients. Like, we've had some clients for years. And I'm like, you know what? Once in a while, they can use a break from me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So it's just been about setting new boundaries and making sure that you're still showing up, even though you love what you do. It's no different than taking a rest day from working out. No one likes, well, I shouldn't say no one. A lot of people don't like rest days. I don't, but I know how important they are for like the longevity, my health, and just like my mental health. You have to take breaks from everything.
There was like just a long weekend where we got a Monday off.
I still feel anxious when I take a holiday off.
Yeah, because of the way that our structure is. It means that it's on the client to reach out to us on Wednesday, because we're not making up a coach initiated check-in day like on Tuesday. We're not doing it on Wednesday. So for some people, if they don't take advantage of Wednesday, it means we're not going to talk until Friday. That's a whole week.
Which seems so long.
Yeah, it does. It's the most rewarding, but also the most exhausting part of the job. It's very emotional work. It's heavy. It's a lot. And so to take a holiday Monday and then to make up that check-in day, you don't really get a break. You just condense. So that was something that we started doing the subsequent check-in day off, like not making it up a couple years ago. And at the end of the day, like if someone gets pissed off about that because we didn't do 3 check-ins that week, they can leave. I don't want a client who's going to be ticked off about me taking a day off like a few times a year.
Yeah, agreed. I think most people who live in this society understand that like taking a day off from work or taking time away allows you to be a better person and a better employee or a better coach or whatever it may be, especially as a service provider and especially with the personal aspect of this job. You want to show up for people. You don't want someone telling you something that's very personal or vulnerable and you being like, okay, we're not responding or missing. Like, yes, that happens, but it's like, if you can avoid it, do what you have to do to avoid it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that kind of covers it.
That sums up the business in 5 years.
I mean, there's so much we could go into talking. We've already talked about how we hire coaches, but I would say like for me too, like the growth of the business, there are 2 issues for me.
Oh God.
Number 1, hiring people is so hard.
Yeah.
Firing people is even harder.
Yes.
They say hire people slowly, fire quickly. I think I do the opposite.
We got to do a better job with that.
I know, but I'm like, it's hard. Firing someone is a really big decision. And I think we've had to do it a few times and it's never good. No. It just isn't a good feeling. You want to try to keep that person and make it work for everyone. And sometimes, that's the way the cookie crumbles and most people understand when it happens. But the times looking back, the worst times have been having to let go of coaches.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's very emotional and stressful. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is like, where are we going? Do we just keep doing this? Mm-hmm. Do we expand? Do we grow?
I guess we'll have to talk about that on another episode.
I know. I feel like something's coming.
Something is coming.
We can't just keep doing the same thing over and over, year after year.
Yeah. Once we figure out what that is, we'll let you know.
We'll announce it.
I feel like it's coming soon.
Yeah, like in the next week or 2.
Probably. Yeah. Probably going to have something. I'm sure we can come up with something in a week.
And then lastly, it was the 1-year anniversary of us, you and me, being married. What was the best part?
Honestly, the wedding was really fun. I don't want to be like, oh, the wedding was the best part of the marriage. That's not what I mean. For us, like,
That's how it sounded.
I know. That's why I had to clarify. Everything after the wedding has been horrible. No, for us, nothing really changed in our life. We were already living together. We were not saving ourselves for marriage. So nothing fundamental.
Hopefully our editors cut that part out.
Hopefully they don't. Yeah, nothing really changed. So it was just kind of... moving into year 6 of our relationship, but married. So it was a good year. We had some good travel in there. I would say it was a growth year for both of us personally. Like it's still ongoing and that's a good thing, even if it's hard. Not going to sugarcoat anything. It was a challenging year for us, probably like the hardest one that we've had. But I think that as you move out of the honeymoon phase of a relationship, which we probably moved out of a couple years ago, you kind of fall into a different kind of love where you have to accept the person's flaws and who they are and sort of choose to walk with them down the path of life. And I don't think that you should accept certain things about people. It's not what I'm saying. But I think a lot of the things that you look past in the early part of a relationship, you stop looking past.
Or things that you used to find endearing and cute are now things that you just get annoyed by.
Yeah. But that's where the choice comes in. And it's choosing love because it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember Pat Robotham, who did our ceremony. Yeah. A good family friend of ours. And she said in one of her speeches to us and to the group that like now the work begins. Mm-hmm. And that is so true. And like it's in a good way. It means there's growth and progress. And yeah, we're like, it was a hard year, but we're closer than ever.
Yeah. Cause you know all my dirty little secrets.
Yeah, right. Cause I pry.
Yeah.
But yeah, marriage didn't really change much.
No.
You got to wear a ring.
When you remember to wear it.
Yeah, we wear those I have like super nice, 2 really nice rings. Meredith has 1 really nice ring because I'm the more spoiled of the 2 of us. Valid. And we both wear like rubber rings, like the workout rings. Yeah. Mostly just because you're so active and you're traveling and you're like, I don't want to bring this really nice ring.
Well, no, like I lost one of the tiny little teeny diamonds out of the band of that, but it's a Tiffany's band. Yeah. And so I took it back in and I was like, hey, I need you to replace this teeny diamond. And they were like, that'll be $450.
It was.
I was like, sorry, what did you just say?
You should pay for this.
Yeah.
Isn't there a warranty on this thing?
Only if you take it in to get the diamonds checked. Yeah, which we should do. But yeah, it's been a good year. I'm still happy with my decision to marry.
Yeah, I did ask you on our anniversary if you weren't married to me, would you marry me? And you said yes, which is a good sign.
It is. Yeah, and I didn't hesitate.
I said, I'll think about it.
Yeah, that was less good. But one day we'll go on a honeymoon.
Yeah.
I love how people are like, but you went to Tanzania on your honeymoon. I was like, that was not a honeymoon.
That was with my parents.
That was with Alex's parents.
Well, we did go to Denver.
I know.
I
But
wouldn't call
like
that a honeymoon.
No.
A honeymoon for me is like you're on a beach or something.
Yeah.
But
So.
we'll take one.
Eventually.
We'll take lots of honeymoons in
Let's
the future.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a little under an hour of babbling. We sure do appreciate you listening to it. Yeah. And if you've been with us, like we have a few people who have followed us from the beginning are still clients. Like we both still have our very first client.
I have my client that was with me. He was like, I'm signed up before Tactic even started.
Yeah.
He's like, I would like to work with you.
Yeah.
And he's still my client.
I know. So thank you. You know who you are for sticking with us and for being the best representatives of our brand. The coolest thing now is I think Tactic very much used to be Alex and Meredith. And now when I think about it, I think about all the clients and the people. And I think that's the extension and the image and what I want people to think about and see.
I'm sure we said this before, but when we started Tactic, one of our mentors, our coach, actually said, don't create a business that has anything to do with your names. And that's why we selected Tactic. Well, I mean, we had a lot of different ideas, but Tactic was the winner. And when I think of Tactic, I think of it as a whole. Like, the coaches are the nucleus, and you have the cell and the whole, and everyone is a part of the
cytoplasm.
Yeah. And I'm the mitochondria because I kind of do all the,
Alex,
the work.
Great reference.
Know, right?
Wow.
That's Bio 10 coming in hot.
It's really good.
But yeah, it's I just think of the whole thing. Yeah. All the followers, all the people who comment, all the people who DM, all the people who email me, all the people who read our emails. It's just this huge community.
Yeah.
And soon enough, we'll see them in person.
Oh my gosh. So excited. Yeah. We'll talk more about that later too. But anyways, thank you so much for following, listening, doing all the things. Subscribe if you haven't so you get notifications when these come out. Share it with your friends. We love you a lot.